You're listening to the Confidence Coach Podcast, episode 79. Helping people is my mission. An interview with Dr. Melissadittberner.
All right, guys, welcome back to the podcast. I am stoked for today's interview, or conversation, I should say. I got Dr. Mo here with me. She is a friend, a teammate, a colleague. We've known each other for maybe 8 years now. I'm just going to throw that out there. So I met Mo through roller derby, and through that, we've really developed this pretty cool friendship. She likes to hold me accountable, and she's done all kinds of amazing things. So I'm going to let Mo go ahead and introduce herself. Tell me what you got going on.
Thank you. That was a very nice introduction. As you said, my name is Dr. Mo, probably more formally known as Dr. Melissadittberner, but we don't really want to go by that because that's kind of frumpy. I am a professor at the University of South Dakota. I teach in the addiction counseling and prevention department. I'm also a massage therapist of 15 years. I guess my main goal is helping people, I would say, if I had to pick a mission. And I just kind of choose whatever way I can to make that happen, whether it's physically through touch or it's through education. So that's kind of a little bit about me, I guess. My introduction.
I love that, because you've helped me with all kinds of things. I mean, even in like roller derby, you were the one that kind of pushed me, to my limits, and physical limits. I guess I would say even sometimes mental limits. You're like, go after it, touche. And I think that's what I love about you so much, is you see the potential in people, and you're like, okay, I know what you're capable of, so I want to help you get there. And you want people to feel good, and you want to help them see their own potential. And so I think you do that through all areas of your life. So I want to take it back, because I know this is going to end up being like a 2 or 3 part series. We could talk for hours on all of the things. So let's take it back to where you were when things started to shift for you, and you're like, okay, I want to help people. And how did that look like for you?
Okay. Thank you for the nice words, first of all. Yeah, I know exactly where it started. I was in kind of a rocky relationship and decided I needed to get out of that. I was basically a single mom with really no skills. I was a high school dropout at about 9th grade, and so I didn't have that to fall back on either. So I decided that I wanted to become a welder, because I knew that would give me a leg up to make some money that I needed to get out of my poor relationship. So I became a welder and started working, and realized that I could take care of myself and my children on my own. I made the step to become a single mom, and realized that I wasn't spending time with my children, that I was working 60 hours a week. I was burning all my clothes. I loved welding, and it's been my only form of art other than massage that I've found yet. But I realized that, getting up at 4 a.m. and dropping off my kiddos to someone else and being in an environment that wasn't positive was not a place for me. So, walking around the shop, grabbing my new gloves, I remember, people saying, like, oh, I'm going to work here until I retire, and I hate this place, but this is just, and if you know me, I don't like the word hate, but that's all they used to say, I'm going to work here until I die, and I'll just retire here. And I couldn't understand for the life of me how someone would put themselves in a situation that they didn't enjoy day after day after day after day, and just keep doing it, thinking that was the only thing in life. And so I believe it was the first year I worked there. I went to Sturgis, because that's the thing that I do. And I met a man who I lovingly call P-Love to this day. And he's now what I would call my mentor. I found him smoking a clove cigarette and decided that I needed a little bit of that in my life. So I went up and talked to him with his gigantic teeth and his huge smile. I'll never forget it. And we hit it off. We just sat there and chatted about everything. And he introduced me to more of a positive thinking. So like The Secret, a way of life where I could look at things in a more positive outlook. And up till that point, I maybe didn't have that skill. So I spent the next year at my welding shop, working at my factory, learning how to see things in a positive light. So every day I had all that time under my hood, building things and creating things to think about how I could think of things positive, even though I was, burning my pant legs and people were being rude to me at work. And because I was the only female working with 265 guys, I didn't always get treated how I thought maybe I should be treated. That's neither here nor there, though. But I spent that time teaching myself how to think positive. I just totally jumped into it, and I realized that I could do things. So slingshot, maybe, about the 2-year mark welding, I went to a conference about meth, and the lady was talking about how you could put meth in Skittles, and she was frightening parents. And I couldn't live with the fact that I thought that kids would not be able to eat Skittles because parents thought meth was going to be placed in it. So as an ex-addict, I knew that you don't put meth in a Skittle, and there's no reason for kids to not eat Skittles other than the fact that it'll rot their teeth right out of their face. So I contacted this lady, just kind of felt like I had to contact this lady. And I told her, hey, if you're going to do these kind of things, and looking back now, this is pretty ballsy, but if you're going to do these kind of things and you need someone to talk who actually knows what drugs look like, feel free to contact me, and I will go and I will speak and I will do whatever you need. I didn't want money. I didn't want anything. I just wanted to be able to help people understand how to truly keep their kids safe, because I feel like I could have used some of that education when I was a kid to stay away from some of that, or at least my parents maybe could have used that to help me not get where I was. And so, she basically told me, hey, you're not educated. We don't, that's really nice of you, but kind of piss off really in a nice way. And that infuriated me. I was absolutely irritated that, she would say that I had no credit to actually help, even though I'd already been that path. I knew what it looked like. I knew what it smelled like. I knew everything, So I decided, screw it, I'm going to school. She said, I don't have any education. So I ended up getting fired, which was a long time coming kind of thing. They wanted me to leave, but I was entirely too proud to leave. And I'm not proud that I got fired, but I only got fired for riding the jack down the hall. So I'm not like I did anything terrible. Anyway, so I skipped out of work when they fired me, which they were mad about as well. Welding helmet in hand, and I took a week off, and I laid on my trampoline and thought about life and hung out with my kids again. And I signed up to get my GED. It took me about a month to kind of remember how to do math again, to be honest with you. And then I enrolled in UST in 2008, right when we started roller derby, and I just never stopped. I never stopped until someone finally called me a doctor. So that's kind of how I broke down, really.
I love that. Okay, so let's take it back to like massage therapy, because I know that was, was it your massage therapy license that you got first for education, or did you go and get your GED first, or what was kind of the sequences of events there?
Yeah, I had my massage license first. Boone was born with something called torticollis, which is essentially just a muscle in his neck that's messed up, and he had to go through a lot of stuff. He was in the children's hospital like every 2 weeks for a very long time, and massage therapy was one thing that happened for him, and I saw how much it worked for him, so I decided to get that skill, hoping it would be my thing to keep him out of the doctor's office, And by the time I was done, he was basically good to go, but I had this thing that I loved. I started a business in Yankton, and it didn't take off for me the way I wanted to. My relationship, like I said, was still a little rocky, and things were just not positive in my life, so massage was just not really a great fit for me then, although I loved it and I loved helping people. It wasn't what was paying the bills, to start a business and be in such a mindset of where I wasn't happy wasn't helping me to get that business rolling.
Yeah. So then what did you do? So then you went to welding after that, or you went back to school after that?
I went to welding after that, and then the sequence that I just told you, yep.
Okay. So when you were going through school, obviously this lady made quite an impact on you, because you still remember her and you're kind of like, fuck off, lady, I'm going to go get all the education kind of thing. So, I talk about this a lot, even like with my clients or with people, that sometimes you have to get angry in order for things to change, and I don't really like the concept of proving yourself, but in a sense, you have to prove yourself or prove, your worth. And it sucks that it's, a form of paper, but think of all the education and all the people that you've been able to help through that, you know? So
Yeah,
I want to ask you, go ahead.
No, that's fine.
I would just want to ask you, like, what kept you going through that whole time, and like, what challenges did you face?
Oh man. So I think mostly I wanted to show my kids that you could do whatever you put your mind to. And I think like setting that goal and showing them, you know, no matter how hard I had to work, no matter what we had to give to make sure that I went, you know, got through class, and no matter what that loan looks like at the end, it's all worthwhile, I think was the main push for me. And every time I meet somebody, and I still do this, and I always have to keep my, like I said, you know, we've talked about this before, I'm always keeping my ego in check because I don't want to ever come from a place of ego, but I would meet people and go to things like trainings and stuff, and I would look at the person training, and I'm like, I could do that. I could do that. And my mentor here at USC right now is one of my professors that I went to, and I remember looking at him in class and thinking, I could do that. I could do what he's doing. You know, not thinking I could do it better, just thinking I could also do it. And now I work right next to him. He could probably hear me talk right now. My office is right next to him. I think it was just, you know, constantly setting those goals and crushing them. And honestly, I think that if I wouldn't have played roller derby, I wouldn't be where I am either, because that gave me an extra place to have this huge release to be weird, to be me, to have fun, to be fierce, to be crazy, and also to be supported. And I think when I talk about people who struggle with addictions, I feel that the support is what gets them through. You know, I also conquered some of my own addictions through my roller derby support, but just having that support to be like, wow, Mo, you're still in school. Like, oh, we're all, you know, everyone was at mostly all my graduations. You know, I had a full team there. I had a full roster at my wedding, you know, like just having all that support was what made it real.
Yes. And that's how we were introduced, was through roller derby. And I remember, it's funny that you say, oh, I could do that too. Cause there's a couple people that played with you that are, well, I guess my husband's sister-in-laws. And we went to a game and I was like, I can do this. Like, I can do this, you know, and it wasn't like I could do it better, maybe a little bit of
Right.
it, because I was totally ego driven when I first, you know, joined. I was like, I'm going to fucking rock this. I'm going to be awesome. And then, while I feel like I did improve and did get really well, or really, ended up being a pretty decent skater, but I definitely had my ego rocked, you know, in the first year or so, let's say. But tell us about how you got started in roller derby. Like, who opened that door for you?
Oh, good Lord. And what a door it was. Talk about Pandora's box. And yes, you did get roller derby. I didn't realize any of that stuff would come. And you know, when I look back and people talk to me, they're like, Mo, I didn't think you would be the one who would be the glue for roller derby and keep it going that long. And, you know, I didn't think you would have all that passion. But man, roller derby took me so many places. I was talking to Stella this morning on the phone on my way to work, and I said, you know, I didn't just learn how to skate playing roller derby. I learned how to run a meeting, how to run a business, how to be a better me, how to put up with people that drove me insane and still run something that made us both happy. You know, so I think Libby was the one who introduced me to roller derby. She said, hey, I saw roller derby in Minnesota and I want to start a team in Sioux City. You got my back. Well, yeah, of course I do. We're friends. Let's do this. So I don't think she knew that I would go to the extreme either, but I immediately took over. I felt like the mom of the team, even before I was really the mom of the team. And I was emailing everyone. The first tournament that we put on, I emailed a whole bunch of people, said, hey, we're throwing this tournament. I had no idea what I was doing. And when all these insanely crazy, awesome people started showing up through the door, I was like, hey, I did that. I sent out an email and they all came. This is awesome. And then I just took it and ran with it. You know, I wanted to be involved in every part of that roller derby had to offer. And then I wanted to spin it into everything I could to make money for charities, local, far away, and just found that was my real niche. It wasn't just playing roller derby, but it was being able to help people along the way, which is why I say I think that's my mission, is because I feel like everything I do always comes back to that feeling of just wanting to help people. So that's kind of where my roller derby passion came from.
Yeah. And I mean, even when I was in it, I know that we, as a team, donated any proceeds, things like that to, you know, the charity of the month or the charity that we sponsored for whatever event it was that you were putting on. And then that kind of evolved, or you'll have to tell me how that evolved into the Skate the State, because that's one of your own charities that you started, I believe, correct?
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. So we decided that, I don't know, I'm crazy, obviously, as with
which is why everybody loves you. So
thank you. And so I decided that we should do some skating to make some money for charities. And I didn't really know what charity it was going to be, but Libby's Aunt Pat had MS. And so we were like, let's start there. You know, maybe we'll shift around from charity to charity, but let's start with Aunt Pat because she's a great human and she was very influential in Libby's life. And so that's where we started. And we're like, well, I live in South Dakota, so let's skate South Dakota. We had no idea what we were doing, but thank the Lord that Libby and Dubs just absolutely believed in me. And that's just where it started. We got done and Dubs and Libby were like, I will never, ever do that again in my life. And I'm like, we'll see you next year. We're going to do Nebraska. And it just hasn't stopped. You know, we met so many people at the ending of Skate the State. I will never, ever forget the first state, not only because it was terrible, I was not prepared, I was overweight, I was not eating correctly, and a million other things, but the people that we met would come and they would show pictures of what people looked like before MS and what they looked like after MS and kind of how it took their lives from them and it took their mobility, and it impacted me in a way that I never knew possible. And so now my mission is to skate all the states until, or at least until MS is cured, until they find a cure for it. My father-in-law found out that he had MS a couple years ago. And just when I thought maybe, you know, I just had a baby and maybe I should stop skating the state, I realized, nope, there's no way. I'm going to keep skating for him as long as I can. So that's kind of where Skate the State was built and born. And we've raised almost $30,000 for the Multiple Sclerosis Society. So I'm really proud of that.
that's amazing. So how many states have you skated? Tongue twister for sure.
Yes, it has. We have skated 8 states, and we are about to take on Hawaii in 2020. So I'm excited.
I can't wait for freaking that. So how do you determine the states?
You know, it started out with like, well, I live in South Dakota, so that one makes sense. The other 2 lived in Iowa, so that one made sense. I'm from Nebraska. And then we just kind of wanted to like get some big ones out of the way. So we're like, let's get Texas out of the way before we're like 50 and trying to skate that sucker, you know? And it's kind of been just a crapshoot. Bags' mother-in-law has a condo in Hawaii, so we knew that would cut down on the cost for us, and we don't want to add any extra costs. So she offered for us to stay there to cut costs. So we thought, well, let's do Hawaii. It's beautiful. We've been doing this for 8 years, and we deserve a little vacation time too on the side. So we'll turn it into a family thing. We also decided that we're going to have a retreat out there, so we're going to try and make things just a little bit different and get the MS Society involved just a little bit more and see if we can get some people together that have MS and get that support that I was talking about. So
that's
there's no rhyme or reason. That was a long answer. There's no rhyme or reason.
No, well, and that's fine. You just kind of pick a state and you're like, oh, that one sounds good. I like that. Some people are very strategic, and almost too many details like turns me off. You know, sometimes I'm like, let's fly by the seat of our pants. Hawaii sounds good. Let's do it. And then, you know, and I think that's why I like you though, is because you're a big dreamer, but you're also very good at putting strategy into place and like breaking goals down and things like that, you know, so you kind of got both ends of the spectrum. But so I'm curious, because Hawaii's broken down into several different islands, or, you know, a handful of different islands. Are you just skating like the big island, or you plan on like spending a day at each, or what's your plan?
Actually, we're going to take on Maui.
Maui?
Yep.
That's where I went and stayed.
So I would love to skate the road to Hannah, but I know that's probably not a thing just because there's too much traffic and we want to make sure that we're safe. And now my kid is going along, so I got to be extra safe. But I think we'll chunk it up. Bags is out there right now doing our investigative work, or he better be doing our investigative work right now while he's in Hawaii. And we'll probably end up not skating as many miles, thinking about maybe 100 or so, which is still a lot of miles. And then doing that retreat to kind of supplement some of that. So
yeah. So how many miles? What's that?
That's our plan at this point anyways.
Yeah. And that's about a year out. So everybody will have to follow along with that. So how many miles was Texas?
We didn't skate across the state from end to end like we normally like to do, because Texas, people are amazing and I love them, but man, they drive like jerks there. And so we were not safe in a lot of cities. So we only did 400 miles. And I say only 400 was a lot, but 400 miles in Texas.
Oh my God. I know, only 400. So was that the longest, or was there longer in one of the other states?
No, that's the longest state that we did. But when we skated the Netherlands, it was 580 kilometers, which is something more than 400. So
That's awesome.
It was a lot.
Oh, I totally forgot about the Netherlands. Okay, so then now the other thing that you do is the skate to end sex trafficking, right?
Yep.
So how does that look, and how did that get started?
So kind of the same thing, right? I was like, well, actually, the topic of sex trafficking is definitely not something that I chose. It's a topic and a problem and an issue that chose me. I took a trauma course here at USD, and I had no idea that sex trafficking was a thing. And I felt that I was very well versed in life. So the fact that I didn't know it was a thing really bothered me. And I kind of vowed that day that I learned about it to be an advocate, to talk about it, to just be a screaming window for people to know that this is happening. And that's what I've been doing ever since. I've done some research, started on a documentary, and decided that I was making my mark, make skating states and raising awareness. So let's do the same thing, but in a different way. Of course, this project takes a little bit different of a turn. Sometimes I get kind of at a mental block, which makes me frustrated because I like to think I can make it through anything, but the topic is so deep and so tough that sometimes I just can't work on it. So it doesn't run quite as quickly as the MS project, but we contacted, when I was in Finland coaching roller derby, because that's how I travel the world, we were talking about the project, and a man that I just met kind of in passing, told me that he thought it would be cool to skate the Netherlands because it's beautiful, it's flat, they have bike paths all across the country, and I never forgot that. And so when I started looking at trafficking, I looked at what trafficking looked like in the Netherlands, and because prostitution is legal there, I wondered if there was still an issue, which turns out, yes, there absolutely is an issue, and sometimes it exacerbates other issues. So I found some people that also believed in my mission, and away we went. We skated the Netherlands and had some really good feedback, met so many amazing people along the way, so much love, so much funds were raised, and we gave the money to a place called Fear Friesland in the Netherlands, and it's a resource center for victims. They also do their own in-house research, and they use modalities from across the board. They're not just bound to one thing or the other, and they do their research about what works best with victims. What really bothered me the most was that, talk therapy might be a great thing, but for someone who's been, abused multiple times a day for multiple years, you're going to have to use some different techniques, and you might have to get a little wild with what you use to help them recover or try to recover from this. And I thought this establishment was great because they were going above and beyond. Kids could live there with them. They were just doing a little bit of everything for techniques to help them. And so it was neat to be able to give back to them. We got to meet the victims. We got to sit down. They cooked us supper, and it was just absolutely amazing. So we decided we better not stop there. Thailand is it's known as a sex tourism country, which is not what they want to be known for. So we decided to go to Thailand and understand trafficking a little bit more. I intended to do my research there about what the differences in trafficking looked like in the United States versus Thailand, but things are very, very different. It's two different cultures, it's two different worlds, and that didn't work out for me as well as I had liked it to. So I did end up changing my research mission to get through school, but we'll never forget that, and I will go back to it. We weren't able to really skate in Thailand. Again, drivers are crazy in Thailand as well, and Thailand is gigantic. But what we did do was met the culture. We understood what it looked like. We sat down, we talked to people, and we talked to a gentleman who worked for anti-trafficking establishment and talked to him about ways we could help here in the United States. Like, what can we do to educate people in the United States that come to Thailand? And his main thing was, telling us, tell them not to come here for sex because that's not what it's for, So it was really eye-opening for us. And it'll definitely be part of the documentary and my research and things that we do here forward. I've talked a lot when I travel about Thailand. People have many, many questions about, what does trafficking look like? What is it, what's the difference between the United States and Thailand? And I always get questions about that, even more than the Netherlands, where we kind of attribute the Netherlands sometimes to the red light district in Amsterdam. So it's always kind of interesting to me. So that's kind of where skate and sex trafficking started. And next we'll 2020 or 2020 is going to be a very big year for me because we're also going to Australia to do our next portion of our skate to end there. So lots of travels.
So does Australia have a sex trafficking problem, or what was the purpose behind Australia?
It turns out the issue is everywhere. Australia kind of came at me again because I wanted to better understand what it looked like. Prostitution is not legal in Australia, and I feel like, and this is just kind of me saying this, but I feel like Australia is very, very much like the United States in a lot of ways. So I was mostly curious about how they deal with it. And when I want to understand things better, I just throw myself right into their culture. So hopefully I will get a good understanding of what they're doing there and maybe bring back some techniques and do some lobbying in the United States once I figure out what they're doing to combat trafficking there.
Gosh, this is awesome. And, and I've heard and talked to you several times about these things, but it's kind of cool to see a little bit of the inner workings behind it. So you make it sound easy to start these things, or just like go for it, like, oh, I'm just going to do this kind of thing. So where do you think you get that skill from, where you're just like, I'm going to dive in, I need to know more about this, so I'm just going to do it?
I think it was just learning that you could do anything that you wanted to, right? Like once I got the idea that, oh, I can do these things, then it just didn't stop. Camel is a great, I'm like a balloon flapping in the air full of dreams, and Camel was kind of hanging onto the string at the bottom. So thank God for him, because otherwise, who knows, I would probably never be grounded. But I don't know. I really wanted to show my kids that they could be whatever they wanted and do whatever they want. So when I dream of something or I think of something, and as long as I'm not hurting anyone else, I'm like, let's do it. And normally the universe puts things in my path to make it work a lot easier than I had thought. And I did find that telling people that I'm going to do something holds me accountable. So if, you're friends with me on Facebook and you see going to Australia, that's because I'm like, well, I put it out there. So now I got to make it happen. And it doesn't matter what I got to do, it's going to happen. So I don't know. It's just kind of putting it out there and just watching all the cards fall into place.
No, I love that with the accountability too, because that's the same for me. Like a lot of times I won't keep promises to myself, but I will keep promises to other. And I don't know why my brain is wired that way, but I found what works for me. And I know that, something similar works for you, but it's kind of the same thing. Like my daughter's my why, like I grew up, with very limiting beliefs, right? Like, my parents would always say like, oh, well, you can do whatever you want. But then when I would go to do whatever I want, it's like, oh, well, not that way. Right? Like you can't do it that way. And I always heard you can't. And I would always question like, why can't I do these things? And come to find out, it's just everybody else's, limiting beliefs or limitations that they set upon themselves. And it's like, well, wait a minute, like who says I really can't do these things? And again, like if you're not hurting anybody and if it's, fun and adventurous and somebody can benefit out of it, then why the hell not? Like it's almost like, well, I shouldn't say it almost is, but like your mission is bigger than yourself. And when you can start to expand your way of thinking that this is beyond me, like I'm impacting this many people. And while you may be like the person who you're the root of it, but it's a bigger purpose, like your why is your kids, your why is helping people. There's a bigger mission there than just like, I'm doing this just for fun. Even if you did do it just for fun, I feel like that sometimes fades away, and your big why is kind of what keeps you grounded, keeps you rooted, and I like how you talked about, the universe, because really, it goes back to that positive mindset, that positive thinking that you were talking about in the beginning. When you start to put good vibes out there, you'll get good vibes, right? Or when you start to, what you focus on, you manifest. So whatever you focus on, whether it's good or bad, that is what you'll manifest in life. So that's when people say, well, when it rains, it pours. It's like, okay, well, you're focusing on the rain, right? How can you turn that around? And how can you focus on more of the good things that you have right now? And, just hearing you talk and hearing you, going to these other states and these other countries and things, for me, I'm sitting here and I'm like, man, God, we really have some first world problems, like earlier I was talking about like technical difficulties with another interview that I was having. And it's like, wow, what a first world problem to have. Like what a blessing to have to worry about freaking internet versus my kids being sold for sex trafficking or to be diagnosed with MS, or, you know what I mean? Like all of these things that happen every single day. And I think we just take a lot of things that we have readily at our fingertips for granted, you know?
Oh, absolutely. I definitely agree with you.
So I just kind of like went off on a tangent there. I'm sorry. But anyway, so what do you think was the biggest challenge through all of this? Like, I know that's kind of an open-ended question because we've talked about so many different things, but what story came up for you that you always just had to like shove aside and say like, nope, I'm going to do this anyways? Or did you have anything like that?
I think actually a lot of people, it was what other people tried to make my story that would have stopped me. Because I know people are like, wow, you've been in school a long time. That's going to be expensive. I can't go back to school because I have loans. Okay, well, I just could never let that be something that stopped me, or I would have never got a PhD. You know, that's a long time in school. And I wouldn't allow that to be my issue. And even though living the broke college life as a mom was rough, because I know there's things that I would have liked to give to my kids that I didn't give to my kids. But at the same time, it taught them that minimalistic lifestyle is a thing too. You know, we don't need everything. And we weren't going to spend outside of our means because I wanted to teach them that too. It did give them character, and it gave me character, and I still won't buy clothes for myself because but I think that was one of the things that other people projected on me. They wanted me to be concerned about the money that I was spending for my education, and I kept thinking, if I'm investing in myself in a way where I can not only help myself and my family but help others, I don't see why this investment would be an issue. So that was something that other people projected on me, which I just kept telling them, nope, you're not. You're not going to give that to me because I don't want that. So.
And I like that. You just like, people try to dump their shit on you and you're just like, nope, take your shit back. I'm determined. You can't stop me. Like, I'm not going to let your limitations
be mine.
And yeah, exactly. And I think that's, and that's what held me back for a very long time, especially, I hear a lot of people say like, oh, well, my family's not supportive, or, oh, this person's not supportive, or, oh, this person's not supportive. And it's like, well, you have to dig deeper than what other people say or think about what you have to do. And it's almost like that inner validation, you know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
You weren't seeking an external validation. You're like, I know I can do this. I don't need your permission to do this. I'm just going to do it anyways,
Yeah.
Okay. So to kind of start wrapping this up, what do you say to the people who are listening to this, who have like a big dream? Maybe they want to quit whatever job they are and go back to school to get their PhD, or maybe they want to start a charity, or hell, maybe they want to start a new sport or a new hobby. Like, what do you say to those people?
So I think it boils down to what I'm going to talk about at your conference, because I'm going to talk about motivation. And I think that is what it all boils down to. What's your motivation? It doesn't matter if it's intrinsic, if it's something that you care about, or it's extrinsic, which was me proving that lady wrong. But what is it that makes you motivated, that allows you to want to get this goal, and finding ways to set up that goal based off your motivation and moving from there. So I think it just boils down to motivation.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay. So what's coming up next for you? How can people contact you? How can they support your many causes?
Well, all of our stuff's on Facebook because I'm old school like that, I guess now. It's not the hippest thing ever. But Skate to End Sex Trafficking and Skate the State for MS are both on Facebook, as well as myself. My next thing is we just got a grant at USD for the opioid crisis in South Dakota. So I'm probably not going to be doing anything crazy, more educational work here at the university, just trying to find ways to help educate people about opioids and pain management. And yeah, I think that's what's next for me, is kind of helping in that fashion.
God, and we could talk about that forever too. The whole opioid epidemic that I believe has, come across our country that people don't really want to recognize. So maybe we'll have to make that a part 2 or something.
We can definitely do that.
Oh man, that would open a whole nother can of worms. Okay. So what I want to do then is I will put your links in the show notes for people. Is there a way, if, say somebody is listening to this, they're like, I want to support you. Is there a way for them to donate money, or a way for them to donate time, or what's the best means of, how can they support you?
Yeah, you can always donate to both of those causes. To Skate to End Sex Trafficking and the Skate for MS. There's donate links on the Facebook pages. You can send me an email if you want to do something cool or you have an idea and you need some support. Just find me on Facebook. Email me. You can put my email on there. I'll always take some motivated person and give them the support and all the sunshine they can handle. So.
I love that. Okay. And then for everybody listening, Dr. Mo is also going to be speaking at my conference April 20th. So if you liked this podcast or if you want to learn more about her, and gosh, you did tons of studies or tons of research on motivation, didn't you?
Yep. That's what I'll be speaking about, some of that research as well.
Okay. That's awesome. I'm super excited for that. So tickets are still on sale for that. You guys can head over to sashadavis.com/events and grab your ticket there. I'll put all of Mo's links in the show notes so you guys can support her and her mission, either with MS or with sex trafficking or anything else she's got going on. So Mo, I want to thank you. This was awesome. This time flew by. I have 1,000,001 more questions for you. So we'll probably end up having to do a part 2 later on this year where we can dive in a little bit deeper on these. So any final thoughts you want to leave everybody with?
No, I just want to thank you very much for letting me be part of this, and I'm proud of you. So thanks.
I'm never going to get used to you saying I'm proud of you. Every time I'm just like, oh gosh. I love it. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. Go ahead, leave a review on this podcast, share it with your friend. Let us know what you loved about it, and we'll catch you on the flip side.